Delighted to say I'm being joined now by Cahir Healy, former Laois hurler, current footballer for Laois. He was involved with the setup back in 2016 when Laois were beaten by a whopping 35 points by Clare in the championship. The teams face each other this weekend. We'll have a small word with Cahir about playing football for Laois. But first of all, Cahir, can you give me your memories of back in that day back in 2016 when you were beaten so heavily by the Banner, and then maybe we'll move on towards how things have picked up since then.
Yeah, that was, well, it was a bad day for me. I dislocated my shoulder and I was gone off in the first half, and I got the final score in the hospital, and just a disaster of a trouncing, I suppose. We had a bad year all that year. Like, if you go back through the results, I think we lost every league game bar a relegation playoff with Westmeath. Offaly beat us well in the first round, and then probably by the time we got down to Clare to play them, we were probably at a very low ebb. Confidence was probably very low, and we got what was coming to us. Like, the run of form we were on, we could expect nothing less the way we were playing up till then.
And what was the mood like in the camp at the time? Because you'd had that couple of seasons where it felt like things were coming right under Cheddar Plunkett, and I spoke with Ross King there a few months back, and he was talking about how brilliantly he was. But then under the next couple of managers, it just didn't really work. He said it was like getting a new girlfriend, but spending all your time thinking about your ex.
Ross always has great analogies. It's a great way of putting things. Yeah, I suppose the thing with Cheddar came in 2013, and we were kind of building, 2013, 2014, 2015. We were getting really competitive. We were having competitive leagues. Mightn't have been picking up too many wins, but we were holding our own and being competitive. And we got a win against Offaly in the championship. And that was huge for Laois because we hadn't beaten them in 40 years or something. And then at the end of 2015, you had, I think, I was adding this up this morning, 6 of the starting team from that day against Offaly stepped aside then the following year. You had a few retirements, like Tommy Fitz was probably 32 or 3, Joe Fitzpatrick, John Adelaide. I think it was 6 of the starting team gone. And then you're replacing those with new minors, very young players, inexperienced. So you're probably going into the following year replacing guys who'd been building for 3 or 4 years, putting in all that work with 19, 20-year-olds who don't have that base put in yet. So they don't, and that probably knocks a team for confidence when all the talk is, oh, you're missing Joe Fitzpatrick, you're down Tommy Fitzgerald, you're down so many players. It probably doesn't help. We were probably very inexperienced, and then without that experience, you lose every league game. You take a few hammerings. It's like snowball rolling down a hill. You find it hard to stop it then.
And did you find like that as players? So I suppose you were 29 or something like that at the time, that you were kind of starting to think, getting disillusioned with this. I mean, because it looked like you were building. You'd nearly had that shock win against Galway, albeit I remember at the time you were following my updates on Twitter about that shock. But it must have been very disillusioning.
It was a bit downheartening, I suppose. I think the big thing was we knew there was talent there. We knew the inexperience. We still had good players and good hurlers. We probably just hadn't learned how to play at senior inter-county level as a squad yet. And it was probably very hard for Cheddar to put in so much for 3 years and then have to kind of start again with a newish enough panel at that stage. So yeah, we did spend a lot of time. How are we going to turn this around for this year? Because we didn't want another wasted year, but that's how it, well, I'd never call a year with Laois wasted. I would never put it that way. I never regret any year I played, but certainly it's one of those years where you look back and you go, God, that was a terrible year of hurling altogether, terrible year of results.
So in a way, over the course of your career, you've kind of jumped from hurling to football. Like, do you ever, and like you'd often hear of other players that flip-flopping between codes has probably held them back in an overall sense. I mean, Podge Collins would have probably talked about not juggling the two, maybe Aidan Walsh also. Can you talk about your experience of over the many years jumping from one code to the other?
Yeah, there's probably a bit of that, and I look back now and I think I probably fell between two stools. Maybe if I only ever played county hurling, could I have been a really good county hurler, or the opposite way around for football? But that's just the way it goes. I mean, I started out with Laois, and I think I played 3 years county hurling, and I kind of decided, look, I'll give the football a go to see can I cut it at that level. And then you go in for a year, and that kind of snowballed into 4 or 5. That snowballed into about 4 years with the footballers. And at that stage, I was really missing the hurling. So I kind of went back to the hurling then for another 4 or 5 years. And then come 2 years ago, you're kind of thinking, oh, geez, you never proved yourself as a county footballer. You're going to have to go back and prove that you can cut it at county football level. And you're back with the football then again. You know, it probably doesn't lend itself to a stellar career or stellar performances in either code, but it's Pat Ritchie said one time they used to say to him, you could have been great at one of them, and he just said, well, I'm from the home of the all-rounder, so I'm an all-rounder. I'm not saying I'm that, but I'm saying that's the way he put it. So that's the way I kind of look at myself. I'd see myself as a dual player as opposed to a hurler or a footballer at this stage.
And still, you got and continue to do. I mean, you played against Armagh last week. You're still getting lots out of yourself, and the commitment you put in is always something that I admire, because you're over in London and you're coming over and back for 10 years at this stage. I just wonder I remember before when you were playing with the Laois hurling team, you were telling me that you'd be over there and possibly in a housing estate banging a ball off a wall on your own and people looking at you odd. Like, are you still making that sort of an effort now that you're sticking more with the football?
Yeah, still do it. Yeah, I don't have the football out banging it against the walls. I found a wall in the school where I work that I can hit it around. You can kind of after school I can go out there and take the ball out and that. And kids will be looking at you funny. Kind of, what is this lunatic hitting the ball off the wall? Or they'll be asking you, are you playing hockey or what are you playing? But yeah, still doing it. Look, Shane, I love it. I love playing with Laois, and it's not. I don't want to sound like a martyr or look at all the sacrifice I make. I mean, the sacrifices are different for everybody. As you know yourself, everyone has their own different sacrifices, whether it's kids or family life or college they have to do, and they have to balance it around that. So my sacrifices, I live in a different country, so I just have to try and make it work that way.
What was your average week look like trying to get over and back for GA?
I'm in with London now. London footballers at the minute, they're very good to me, so I'm usually in with them on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and you'd have a gym session on a Wednesday. And then if the game, we've had games the last few weekends, so if the game is on a Sunday, I'll fly home on a Saturday. And it's not too bad when the games are coming, because usually Friday and Monday then we're kind of just doing a bit of stretching, foam rolling, trying, a light bit of cycling to just loosen out the legs, so it's not too bad. The weeks you have games, so then come home on a Saturday and back on a Sunday night.
Could be fairly funny.
Came home the weekend just gone now, and the game got called off.
Gee, that must be very frustrating. What happens if Laois end up in a championship match against London? What does your training week look like then?
I'd say I'll be barred out of London training. I'd say they'll close the gates.
So if I could just jump back to 2016 and that game against Clare. Yeah. What was it like on the field that day when things are going that bad that you end up 35 points behind?
Yeah, it's a funny one. Like, usually I was sent out to man-mark Tony Kelly that day, and I dislocated my shoulder after about 20 minutes. So even then, even though the scores were going over the bar, my mindset was still very much chase him and stop him, chase him and stop him. I wasn't really thinking about the scoreboard as much. But certainly when I was it's only afterwards I'd kind of look at it back and think, like, in the hospital I got the score and it was like just shaking my head. I was like, Jesus, like how far are we off it again? After building for 3 years, how are we gone back this far to take this type of a beating? It's a little bit demoralising, and the fear for me at the time was, would the younger guys who have come in, would they see that and be discouraged by it instead of building on it? Might they say, look, we're not up to this level, let's forget about it. Now, luckily enough, they haven't. Like Ryan Mullaney and Ross King, Mark Havanagh, all those fellas stuck around with it and got their rewards last year.
And we'll come to the football in a second, because things are going pretty decently under Mike Quirke so far. But like the change you've seen in the hurling in the past couple of years, Eddie Brennan coming in, win the Joe McDonagh Cup, then of course the big win against Dublin in the preliminary All-Ireland quarter-final, going to be the Leinster Championship this year. Derek McGrath is now involved with the minors as well. It does feel like a massive upturn all of a sudden for Laois hurling.
Yeah, huge change of fortunes in a year from I think they finished fourth in the Joe McDonagh 2018, and then won it last year and had that great win, pushed Tipperary to an extent. We're competitive against Tipperary, so it was a huge turnaround. That's probably credit to the players who stuck it out. Like, a lot of those guys who would have beaten Dublin last year would have been there for that hammering against Clare. If you go down through the team, like Enda Rowland was still in goals. He was probably 19 down in Clare. Ryan Mullaney was probably only about 19 down in Clare. Colm Stapleton still in the squad. Ross King, Willie Dunphy, Paddy Purcell. They've all stuck with it for 3 or 4 years. So the credit has to go to them for sticking with it and not throwing the towel. There's a few more. Matthew Whelan be older than those, but he's stuck it out, and he's my age. And he stuck it out, he never threw in the towel at it either. So credit has to go to those fellas for turning it around. I suppose the big challenge now is that the peak of it, or is that where you kind of set your base level now and where you expect to be all the time? That's the challenge. Can you keep it at that level is the big thing now.
Because there are a lot of injuries for Laois this year. I know that's something that's been mentioned in the past, and the idea of putting back-to-back seasons together is going to be tough, especially when you're going into a Leinster Championship. You're going to have 4 massive games in a short space of time, and the players, they're simply not going to be used to that. So, I mean, I don't even know how much you get to watch Laois because you're based in London, and I know you're over and back, and then you're playing football when you're here. But where do you see the hurlers going under Eddie Brennan?
They've been competitive in the first 2 games. Like, I wouldn't be... a lot of injuries there. There's Aaron Dunphy didn't play the first game against Wexford. Matthew Whelan's had an injury. Mark Kavanagh, Éanna Lyons. All important. Like, I suppose with a county the size of Laois, it's hard to replace 4 or 5 just click of the fingers. But I'd be hopeful for them. I think it's a great opportunity. Like, I mean, if you were asking them last year, where do you want to be in a year's time, they'd say we want to be up in Division 1 Hurling League, and we want to be in the Leinster Championship testing ourselves against the TJ Reeds and the Joe Cannings and whoever else. So they're there now. So they're probably relishing that opportunity. I would hope anyway. I'd imagine they are, knowing some of them.
So, and what about yourself then with Laois? I mean, last weekend you came on, and you were telling me just there before we started recording, you came on for the last 5 minutes against Armagh. Is it like... How's it working for you this year? As you're getting older, are you finding that you get fewer opportunities, or is it just that's the way it's worked out this season?
I suppose I've had a few cruciates the last few years, so I was only coming back from the latest one about November when Mike Quirke gave me the call, and we kind of said, look, I might be able to play some O'Byrne Cup, but then once I was getting back in the training field, I picked up a calf injury and a back injury. So I didn't get to play any O'Byrne Cup, and then fair enough, I guess he kind of said, look, I can't pick you in the league. I haven't seen you haven't shown me anything, and that's totally understandable and totally fair. So there's no complaints from me. I just have to kind of do my best during the week, and if I do get a 5 minutes against Armagh or whatever, or if we have a training and I'm home for a weekend, I've just got to make the absolute maximum of that he can trust me, and if there's an injury, that I'm ready to come on. If the injury is there, I just have to try and be mature about it and be ready to take a chance if I do get.
And how difficult was that period of the was it a cruciate on each knee, or what way did it go?
Yeah, it was two a cruciate on each knee, and I needed 2 operations on one of the knees. There was 2 cruciate and the medial ligament, so I needed 2 operations last March and last June.
That must have been like fairly horrific mentally as much as anything else.
Yeah, it was very disappointing because I came back from the first one and I was playing for about 6 months, went back in with Laois footballers, and 15 minutes into the first challenge game, Paul Geaney fell on me and tore that knee out, and I was coming back from that one. I kind of was like, I wasn't too downhearted. I was like, right, I got back from one cruciate, I'll do even better at this one, I'll get back better. I know what to do this time, I know what mistakes I made, and everything was going brilliantly. And 3 months down the line, the other ligament that had torn hadn't healed as well as we were hoping, and the surgeon had to go in again, so I was kind of starting all over again. I kind of 3 months of rehab done, and I got another knee surgery and back to the very start again. So that was that surgery was very downheartening. Now after that one, it took me a few weeks to kind of knock myself out of a slump and get going again.
Your family and friends must think you're mental the way you're able to keep going, just like, because it takes a lot of resilience to do that.
Yeah, I suppose it does, but like, I mean, look, I'm not the first person to come back from a cruciate, and I was reading, Brendan Maher's probably the poster boy for coming back from cruciates now, with his performances since. And I saw he did an interview, and he said something along the lines of, he found it very tough to rehab at the start, that he was doing it on his own in the gym, and he kind of packed it in for a week, and he couldn't, he rang the S&C coach, and so he started doing the training sessions with someone. They got into a group to do it, and that kind of gave me a bit of heart to say, like, if a lad like Brendan Maher can find those things tough at certain stages and still come through it, well, you'll come through it as well, So I took a bit from that, that even the top guys find it hard. So,
well, where do you see this season going for both yourself and Laois? I mean, things have started fairly promisingly under Mike Quirke.
Really good start to the league. Results wise, I suppose it's too early to get ahead of ourselves, really, because we're playing Cavan this weekend, and if the result goes against us against Cavan, I think we've gone from first in the table to maybe fifth or sixth. So all of a sudden the season has a completely different slant on it based on one result. So it's probably very early to say, we're having a great season. Good start, but it's too early to say the season is going great. It's like I said, one result and you're halfway down the table in Division 2. It's so tight at the minute. As regards myself, I'm just trying to get on the team without giving cliches. I mean, it's been so long since I played county football. I'm just so happy to be involved with the team again. Like, I'm buzzing, being around the lads, been in the dressing room, chatting to them. Kieran McAvoy asked me last week, how are you getting on with the injury and stuff, and I was like, Mac, I'm buzzing just to be playing with the team again. It's great.
And like, when did you last play a championship for Laois, considering all those injuries?
Championship for the hurlers 2017, and for the footballers 2018, or not 2018, 2012, sorry, because I was hurling since then. Yeah.
So you've gone back to the footballers, like you've gone back a couple of years now, but it's actually 8 years since you played in county football.
Yeah, I went back to county football 2019, but I did a cruciate in the very first challenge game in January. So it's 8 years since I played a championship game. So hopefully I'll get one this year.
You are mental, I have to say that. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, well, sure. Look, I suppose it's sure, you grow up dreaming of doing it. So there's really, like, I'd be letting down the 10-year-old if I quit now, So and look, it could be over for me next year. Mike Quirke might look at me and say, "You're 34, you're not wanted. We're moving on," and sure, then it's over. So it mightn't be my choice anymore then. So I'll take it while it's there.
Can I ask you a question about Mike Quirke? Because people were talking about, Donny Kingston's not there, Paul Kingston's not there, and everyone assumed there would be a bit of a downturn. But when the results have gone positively, he's been talking like, well, there are very good footballers in Laois. So I just like the way he's framed the conversation, rather than it being all about who's not there. He's actually got the results, and he's just saying, lads, what's everyone freaking out about?
Yeah, it's a fair point. Like the lads are excellent footballers, and you'd love to have them in there, but the reality is they're not there. So you have to you have to be strong and just go, right, we move on now with what we have. And you look at the players we do have. I think every county has good footballers somewhere. It's not a case of every county only has 15, and if you lose one, the next guy in is no good. So there's definitely footballers in Laois. There always has been footballers in Laois. And look, it's like anything. I mean, Bernard Brogan retired for Dublin. Like, they're not going to be. I doubt the conversation in the Dublin dressing room is, we're down Burno. They're going to be going, look, who's next up? You got to move on sometime, and if the Kingstons did want to come back, I'd be delighted, they're excellent players and they've given a lot to Laois over the years. So,
well, look, I appreciate you taking the time, because I know you have to go in and do a course now. We're probably up against it. So thanks very much for doing that, Cahir, and best of luck for the year.
No bother at all, Shane. Pleasure.